Children, this week's Parshas Shlach, something very nice from the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Zatzal. In this week's Parsha, the bulk of the Parsha in the beginning all speaks about the famous story of the spies, the Meraglim, and they came back and they brought a terrible report. And then after the Torah finishes with that whole story, comes the mitzvah of the wine libation. The mitzvah from Niske Yayin, the measurements of how much wine we pour by each specific korban, types of animals, and the Torah goes into details. All the Mefarshim ask, what's the connection between the whole story of the spies, the Meraglim, with this mitzvah of libation, the pouring of the wine? Explains Rabbi Yitzchok something very beautiful, which is really based on what it speaks about the Chassidus, that Rebbe talks about it, and in great detail the Rebbe explained it, our Rebbe, in a Maimon and Parshas Shlach and Tovshin Yud Beis. It's brought down to His Menachem. The Gemara says in Baba Basra, Daf Ayin Gimel Omid Beis, and also Ayin Dal Dabar Aleph, the last line, that Rabbi Bachona, he saw the Mesim Midbar, those, we know all the Yidden, that generation, they all died in the desert. These who didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael after the story with the spies, this week's Parsha. And it says that they looked like Kiman de Mifsemer, as if they were drunk. And what does that mean? Now the root, the etymology of the word the Mifsemer is Boisem, Beis Samach Mem. They were drunk, like they had lots of wine. Explains Rabbi Yitzchok that wine, if you have it too much, it could bring to ecstasy, blissfulness. You're excited, you're too happy, and you get overly excited. And this connects with what explains the Chassidus. It could bring to chaos a little bit. And it has to be controlled. And Chassidus, it explains that the sin of the Meraglim wasn't that they just wanted to chas v'sholem, make a demonstration or fight against the Eibishter. They just got the Torah from Sinai. How could they weren't on that. They were holy people, fine people, elevated people. But their flaw was exactly what the Mifsemer. They were drunk from wine, which means that they were so overwhelmed. And they were living in a world in cloud nine. They just got the Torah. They saw the greatness of Hashem. And they had the manna. And they thought to themselves, why do we have to go into Eretz Yisrael and be involved working the land? Eretz oicheles yeshver. It'll be a land that will be so involved in earthly, corporal, physical matters. It'll eat us up. We won't have a relationship to Hashem. So let's stay here, and we'll serve Hashem on a spiritual level. We'll learn His Torah. We'll be in this Gan Eden, and life will be bliss. It'll be incredible. We'll be like in Gan Eden. That was their mistake. So they were on such a high, similar to what wine could sometimes bring. They were like drunk. And Moshe Rabbeinu told them, I appreciate your feeling, what's called a rotzu. You have a yearn and you have a strong feeling for the Eibishter. You're on a high. That's very, very good. But you have to remember that Tachlis HaKavanah, the ultimate goal of the Eibishter is Maisa HaMitzvahs. We have to go into Eretz Yisrael and we have to elevate the world. And don't think it's Eretz Yisrael. It won't eat you up. Just the opposite. Take that positive feeling that you have towards Hashem, bring it into the world, and elevate the world. And you'll see through Torah, you'll have that power. That's the ultimate goal. That was the mistake of the Meraglim. We once spoke, Rabbi Yitzchok says, this Gemara is hinted in the pasuk of this week's Parsha. The Gemara says in Soita Daf Lamadal Dom Beis that the names of the spies is hinted in their character, in their mistakes, so to say, in their shlichus. And the Gemara only explains two of them. The first one is the spy from the Shevet of Osher, And it says his name was Sisur ben Michael. And the Rebbe's father says, look at the word Sisur. Hittitus comes to the word of destruction. This type of life that they wanted to bring is a type of chaos. That's not the ultimate kavanah of the Eibishter, that we should be removed from the world and just living in a desert. The tachas kavanah is olam hatikun, elevate the world, fixing the world, slowly by slowly, step by step, in involvement in the physical world. And here Rabbi Yitzchok says, look in the Rosh Tevis, Sisur ben Michael. Sisur is a samach, starts with a samach. Ben Beis, Michael, mem starts. Change around the letters, you get to boisem, intoxication. So this Gemara, the mifsema, that they were intoxicated, they lost their minds, they were like emotionally taken over in such a ecstatic situation, that brought their mistake. Now, says Rebbe Levi, so beautiful. Now you'll understand what the Eibishter, right after this story, says, you know what will be the tikkun? How you're going to correct this problem? Look at the mitzvah of niskei yayin. Whenever you bring a korban, you have to always pour wine. Explains the Chassidus so beautiful, that if you look where a korban was, it says in this week's Parsha, it says, Vasisem Isha LaHashem. Isha comes from the word a fire to Hashem. You brought it like a korban mincha. So then the kohen would take a fist handful, and that would be what's called a koimetz, brought it on the mizbeach, and that went up with the flame. The wine libation was pouring it on the side of the mizbeach. There were vessels there, and it used to go down to the drain. So the fire, the mincha, went up, and that's symbolizing a person's yearn to Hashem. That's very good. But look at the wine. The wine is the opposite. It doesn't go like fire up. It goes down. Hashem wanted to show, you have to have the combination. Ishel Hashem, you have a fiery feeling to Hashem, a yearning to Hashem, a passion. That's wonderful. But remember from Yayin, don't become drunk like the Meraglim of that generation. Learn from how the Eibishter says, I'm telling you, bring the Yayin. And the Yayin goes down to tell you, together with the great feeling that you always have to remember, Maaseh HaMitzvah, that is in the action, elevating the world, going down, correcting, fixing, elevating the world. That is the kavanah. Similar to wine that goes down. And he sees so beautiful the connection of the whole story of the Meraglim. They were drunk. This is what the wine accomplishes. Similar to wine. But it was too much. It was in the wrong way. David said, look at this. What you have to do with this kayayin. This will teach you my whole goal of mitzvahs. The action is what counts.